Hello and welcome to episode 195 of Michael and Ivanka's grand podcast. And we have me and Frozen. Oh, Ivanka's back. We are just so fraught with technical problems. Oh, I've got stuff outside the window. Ivanka might freeze on the video. Hey, who knows? But we're going to record it anyway because we are just so committed to serving you, our listenership, with our insights and explorations and figuring out what we think about everything. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Majic.
She's in Croatia. I'm in London. I always want to say yours is the country and mine is the city, but I should be more consistent. I'm in the UK. She's in London. She's freezing every so often, and so I don't know what she thinks. Today we're going to talk about Spotify.
Yeah, about time.
Why?
That's what I say. Well, because they're being in the press for people pointing out that they're hosting Joe Rogan.
And Daniel, is it Daniel Ek? I mean, good. Yeah, Daniel Ek he's said some stuff that we don't like, and he's become a billionaire out of Spotify. And meanwhile, he sort of promised that once more people were subscribing to it, that artists would get more money, but that never really happened. So there's all that stuff. So there's Joe Rogan, and there's why we'll talk about why it's good, why it got successful, but also I actually don't use it anymore just because it's quite easy to switch to something, and different circumstances you can use something different, and it's all the same music, isn't it? So,
yeah, I think also it highlights the topic of how much power you do or don't have as a consumer of where to spend your money. Because I am currently Spotify are getting my money, but I have been on and off and on and off. And I will explain why.
Okay. So
in case anyone's interested.
You've got all that to look forward to. Let's have a transition. Will this hello. I was like, I just said, will this oh, it did. Auto transition back to us. How's it going, Ivanka? How's your week? What's the best thing that happened?
My week has been very busy. I'd say that the busiest, I'm going to do two things. The busiest thing that's happened is that we launched the Bravos, the Brighton Restaurant Awards. Vote online. Please do vote online if you're listening to this between the 10th of February 2022 and the 24th of March.
And where's that? How do you get to that?
BrightonRestaurantAwards.co.uk.
Brighton Restaurant Awards.co.uk. There you go.
Go vote. And so that requires a lot of effort and time and energy, and we'll continue to. But I love it. It's quite positive. I was on the radio in the week, and it made me realise that my phone mic is awful. Poor woman having to talk to me on the radio via my telephone.
Hate it.
Bad. But then in a more positive note, I've made electricity, so that's good. I didn't have to do anything. It was just there on the roof making electricity. And that's
just came out of the sky.
Came out of the sky and hit my solar panels, and then there was electricity. And then, but what's been nice about that is kind of as I had hoped, it has sparked a number of conversations with other people. Some people that I think have more power than they think locally. And I think also there's this whole topic, maybe that's what we should talk about another day though, is this sort of like local action versus global and global impact sort of dichotomy. Is it a dichotomy? Is that the right word? I don't know. Anyways, I've been having good quality conversations this week, which I have been enjoying. How has been your week, Michael?
I will just say, yes, you have been vindicated in your plan to spark conversations by doing something, and I applaud that.
Thank you.
My week's been terrible and great. I failed my driving test within like 10 seconds.
You must stop laughing.
Within like 10 seconds, and I was just like, well, at least I failed fast, as they say in startups. I literally driving out of the car park of the driving test centre, just very neatly and cleanly went into the opposite lane and to turn right. Just went onto to the right, I think my brain went, I've been practicing roundabouts. Well, you've got to go the rightmost thing to get onto the roundabout. And yeah, basically just sort of went into... I mean, it was a really small, compact, awkward little car park, but I really should have known better. So it's going to be like 200 quid to try that again. Yay!
So much pain. I'm sorry.
I've had like 40 hours of lessons. I was feeling so good. I was feeling calm. I was feeling collected. I was feeling like I can do this. I've got this. First, looking around carefully, being really clear about what I was doing. Yeah, talking. And the tester goes, "Do you know that you just drove in the wrong side of the road there?" And I was like, "That's a good start." And then he sort of like led me round the roundabout back into the car park and went, "Yeah, I mean that."
It's
come back
fail.
from that. I'm really sorry. Like, did you see that there was a giveaway? Like, I was like, nice guy, but man alive, it wasn't feeling good that day. But I did, I have actually, business wise, everything's been really cool. Like, even with my no code thing, I've been doing some good networking, and I released a little tool that I made for myself as a Mac app this week that literally I sort of did a decent level of polish for something that was just for me. So I had it there, so I just made a nice icon for it and recorded a video showing how to use it, and I've had a really nice, and it's quite niche. It's for, if anyone's looking at the video, it's for this bit of gear, the Synth Strom Deluge. And it's just to get your songs on it, basically. And I've had a really nice, a lot of feedback, a lot of helpful person on Reddit wrote me a long post about where I should take it and what he would change about it. And then I found some new Discords and made some new friends there. And also this Office Hours Global is I'm sort of getting myself, they're finding out about Shoot, that they do this AV conversations. And I do, like, if you are interested in like live doing the sort of thing we're doing, then it's a really nice place that you can just go and ask them questions, and they all have like decades of experience in sort of AV and live stuff, and like they had stories about how they set up an interview in the White House with Obama and stuff like that, and like how they practice loading in and loading out. So they've got all this like really deep experience in that world, but they also sort of embrace the kind of stuff we're doing. And actually my app is a really good fit for their world, and they didn't really know about it until I did my lead magnet with one guy and met Rabbi David Paskin, and then Torah Tech guy, he told me about that, and he sort of mentioned he'd used one thing I'd made, and then I told him about Shoot and watched him install it and get excited about it, and then he shared it on there, and now they're going to talk about it this afternoon, and I'm getting my app talked about on another podcast today as well.
Wow.
I'm networking the out of it with this no code world. So,
well done, Michael. Yeah. Well done.
Business.
Isn't it amazing that like you can have a product that's good, but until people know about it, they don't use it.
There's no point adding loads of bells and whistles to it. Although the thing that did get the main guy on that Office Hours excited was my you can draw on the screen, which I will demonstrate now. Hey, look, I've got a smiley face. Oh, hello. Oops. So it was like a little bit of the bells and whistles that made it stand out, but it's still really solid on the basics. Well, so there you go. Shoot Clean Camera Feed, available now in the App Store.
Some years ago, when I did some user research with sort of more professional buying of technology, it was the relationship with the person making it, or the firm making it, or the brand making it, that had the most value, really. But one feature could persuade people to flip. So you need that kind of sort of combination of, I've got to trust you, I've got to think that you're going to be really, so like, and often with buying tools and things, people stick to what they know because it's safer. Having your little drawery thing might just be the thing that makes somebody go, oh, let's find out a bit more about this Michael dude. Maybe he's more trustworthy than I'd thought.
Yeah, so doing well, good at business. That's what I'm doing. Right, let's have a break. And there we go. That was a little. I actually played some music this week as well. I did a little music stream. So there you go. Right. speaking of music, yeah,
Yes.
Spotify. It's this new thing. It's this new thing where you can listen to loads. There's not much music on it yet, but you can see what everyone's listening to on Facebook. Shows up in their profile, and then you can tease them about it. So it's going to be really. I think it's going to be big. I am, of course, transposing myself back to 2008,
I think
7.
yeah, 8, 7. We were at LBI when
Yeah.
Spotify was around. Yeah, 8, 9.
It's
7,
when
8.
and I think one thing I've heard is it really benefited from when Facebook had a lot of they were doing all this stuff where you could sort of share activity in it, but you just saw Spotify stuff just bubbling through constantly. Whenever you're on Facebook, you saw like what people were listening to, and I think Spotify did really well out of that, and became the big player in that game as the internet was ready for streaming music. Of course, that seems not much these days now that we're streaming web video at 4K on our mobile phones while we walk around. Back then it was just getting the audio streaming was a pretty big deal,
and having that access to that range.
Yeah, although to be fair, like there wasn't, like, a lot of the stuff I wanted wasn't on there to start with, and so, but I do remember sitting in a room with my musical heroes, Mouse on Mars, back in 2013, and we sort of got onto the subject of Spotify, and then they sort of ended up just kind of going through because they didn't know what was on there of their catalogue, and they would go, this is on there, and they were sort of discovering what their labels had uploaded to Spotify, and were sort of quite surprised to see so much of their back catalogue on there. But for a while there wasn't, like, you still had to curate your own music collection if you were serious about music, but certainly a lot of stuff you could access to start with. Sorry, my musicianness is coming out a little bit.
Yeah,
here.
I'm way more mainstream in my music consumption. Maybe not in my. I'd like to think that I have an eclectic and varied musical taste, and I'm always open to.
A fun story about Ivanka, and I will support this, is when I joined Canonical, she was like, I want to make a video to promote the design team, and I've chosen this song that I really like, and I was like, oh no, she's going to send me some like horrible thing, but I really thought it was a really good choice of music. I was like, that's kind of a cool track. So yeah, I don't think you're quite as behind the curve as you are claiming. I think, not that my opinion is necessarily anything to go by, but I do have a deep understanding of music, actually, because I'm an
I think the point that I wanted to make really was that I have not been a music purchaser particularly through my. I know, when I was a teenager I bought it, but it was expensive to go and buy an album, and so you'd sort of save up and go and buy. I had lots of things on vinyl in them days when they were just called records. Because that's
didn't
what
have
the
to
music
differentiate.
it's just like it's have records and tapes and stuff, and used to record things off the radio and all of that stuff that we used to do, all that good stuff. But to actually buy music was expensive, and I think I was more of a book buyer. But anyway, it was only when you could have these subscription models like Spotify that I have since then had a regular, constant contribution to the music industry, or that's how I see it. But as it transpires, I may be more contributing to Spotify's or Apple's. I've paid for Spotify and Apple at various times.
Supporting some billionaires, musicians, still probably. I mean, I can tell you as a musician my numbers from last week. Nothing from Spotify last week in my 12 cents. The week before, bit from TikTok. The week before, a little bit of Spotify, but I might make like 5p a week from Spotify. And that's not. I mean, obviously, I'm only getting like a handful of streams, but to sort of to get like a decent living from music through music streaming, you have to have some. But you always did, like this infographic went round like 2010, like even, and it was like you have to have 1 million plays a week in order to just make a sort of, to be able to pay the rent on a modest house, kind of modest flat. But the promise of Spotify was always like, oh, well, while we're still getting artists on, that we need more and more users, then there will be more of a fund to pay everyone from, all the artists from. So we'll get more and more users, and then there'll be more of a pot that we can split. But clearly all that's happened is Ek has taken it, instead of doing what he promised, which was to share it out among the artists. So I feel like this is something I don't want to harp. I mean, I will harp on a little bit, but like there is a broken promise there, and it's sort of like classic capitalism, like growth, built on the bones of all the artists that fuel it with their years and years of sacrifice and craft and buying equipment and, you know, saying no to a safe existence. We all put all this in, and then Eck takes all the money and then has the audacity to claim that you can make a good income on Spotify just by working harder. Just work a bit harder. And I will put a link to when he said that in the description.
That sounds a bit like that sort of like, well, it was always, the record labels always made loads of money, so, you know, and what's different now? It's like, well, I think there's this, just because you change the technology doesn't mean you don't also have to change the business model. Well, you know, it's like you can't inherit all the bad habits. I mean, you can, and people do, but it's a bit off, I think, you know, this kind of that but yeah, I didn't really I in many ways thought that my whatever I now pay $16.99 a month on Spotify because I have a family subscription. I don't even share the login. I'm even you know what I mean?
No, but you can't share it because otherwise
honest participant in the Spotify.
No, but you say that, but that's going to pollute your recommendations. And one of the things about Spotify is that you want, you know, the Discover playlist is a really good feature and it works well. If you had someone else like listening to music on it, it's just going to like mess up your recommendations, isn't it?
Like a 6-year-old.
A 6-year-old. Okay, is that happening? Are you getting horrible recommendations now?
Oh, of course. But that's one of the reasons I went with Spotify, which I've told you before. I wasn't Apple Music. I used to be on Spotify. They went to Apple Music because we went camping with some friends and we wanted to be able to share playlists, and they were on Apple, so we moved to Apple. And then because I didn't really care, and then I realised that Apple has I couldn't find on Apple any sort of family-friendly settings to go, don't play my child explicit lyrics and don't auto-start videos. And Spotify has actually a very neat chilled Spotify for Kids app that you get, and she can have access to, and I don't have to be afraid she's going to listen to Pink swearing because she loves Pink, but Pink is quite sweary. So I do need the radio edit. You can't let your 6-year-old, 5-year-old, 4-year-old listen to Mofo in all day long.
Yeah, well, they're going to sing it.
Not even again, me.
Not even you.
Not even me, who's quite sweary as a human.
Well, I cancelled my Spotify when I got a HomePod because we got this thing to listen to music on. And I was like, well, it's going to be no use without Apple Music subscription, and I can get the same music on there as I can on Spotify. So I'm not really loyal to Spotify, but I'm not really loyal to any of the distribution companies at all. Like although it would be like I have let that Apple Music subscription lapse just to save a bit of money because I pay for YouTube Premium, so I get like YouTube music. I can listen to whatever through YouTube, but it's a couple of extra steps. I suppose I could plug in Google suspiciously sent me a free, you know, one of those Google Home type things, but there's no way I'm plugging that in and letting that microphone into my house. I trust Apple on privacy, but Google, no. Amazon, no.
I'm quite hesitant because Google has YouTube YouTube Kids, which people have gone, oh, just let her use YouTube Kids. I'm like, I don't want to. I don't, you know. Like, she's only little. Why should Google already know everything about everything she likes? And, you know, I don't know. I'm a bit like, it is a question for me. I know it's almost impossible to protect your child's digital footprint in anticipation of their future. But YouTube's just like, no.
We watched a film called The Hunt at the weekend. Is it Swedish? And it was a weird one because it's 2012, so it was a bit of a like, this man gets sort of ostracized by his community as like a pederast kind of thing because this little girl sort of like claims that he's done something, and I was a bit like, I think it's definitely worth watching and sticking through because it's not like a sort of like in the post-Trump era. It's hard to go, oh, this sort of handsome white man has had his life ruined by like a little girl who you shouldn't believe when
Right.
she says things. But the message of it is more about basically his superpower is that he's able to kind of deal with that and all the kind of violence that comes from the community as a result of that kind of false accusation, and he still kind of comes with empathy to this little girl in the end. And not to spoil it, but she just like sees some, but the only reason like the story is taken seriously is because some little kids run past with an iPad and they've got some porn, and there's like a, she sees it for a second, and you sort of, and like then they run away and you sort of see it on camera, and then that's sort of like she's seen it, so when she says, oh, he showed me his, whatever, and was able to describe something because she'd just been exposed to it for a second on the internet. And it is pretty terrifying how easily a child can anyway, it was an interesting story on that.
But I mean, I this is off topic really, but I think that's never stopped us before. But my child knows that I have a proper aversion to her being on her own in front of YouTube for more than a nanosecond. Like we control her access to stuff quite carefully, but YouTube they even have things, very clever content masquerading as children's, because it has something like Elsa. I'm sure I've told you this before, like Elsa from Frozen, and suddenly Elsa from Frozen is being animated into sort of some foxy kind of version of herself that is just, my little girl doesn't need to see that stuff yet. I'm not going to shelter her from the reality of the world, but let's let it out easily, slowly,
There's a video by Folding Ideas who's about like the weird content farms that just put these CGI like Spider-Man, Elsa, all this thing, and they just generate this thing. But he's got really interesting exploration of that stuff. So yeah, it is a bit scary. I mean, I'm obviously not quite as invested in it. But let's break. Let's transition on that weird thing. Your camera
is frozen.
Yeah, it's freezing every like 10 seconds. We're going to have to reboot before the professional podcast, I think. This Joe Rogan stuff then. Tell me what you've seen about all this Joe Rogan stuff.
So, I have not listened to an episode of Joe Rogan, and part of me feels like I shouldn't comment on Joe Rogan until I've listened to Joe Rogan. But I also, from everything I see around Joe Rogan, I don't want to listen to Joe Rogan. He's not for me, and I have no reason to listen to him. Otherwise, I would have probably already listened to him. And there's this kind of... And I do think we're stuck in this slightly weird situation where if the Joe Rogans of this world, who seem to invite people onto his show who I wouldn't want to listen to, like Ben Shapiro, who you and I have listened to, and that whatever his name is, Peter Jordan or Jordan Peterson or whatever, that sort of people of that ilk, that you're like...
I'll have a chat with them, and usually if I see anything about Joe Rogan, it's a video essay about something problematic on like RightTube that he's had someone on, and then it's usually a conversation with Joe Rogan. Although it's like the new thing is like RightTube has been sort of like almost sort of defeated to some extent by the kind of left, but now there's like left tube has turned into this weird thing. Debate Bros is this new sort of problem that's come through, and it's sort of like similar strategies to how the right were doing things, but it's like now it's a different sort of weird thing going on. So it's almost like the ContraPoints and the H-Bomber guys and the Folding Ideas guys sort of managed to kind of get on top of all the right-wing nasty stuff, but now it's coming out in weird different ways. I don't know if Joe Rogan is more the newer kind, or he's been around for years, but I don't know a lot about. I haven't really listened to much of what he's done either.
I was amused by one of my friends. She posted a sort of some screen grab of somebody talking about like one of his life life rules is if there's something that only men like, then it's probably okay. Every time we're forced to talk about Joe Rogan, I'm reminded of my best and most immutable axiom: nothing that only men like is cool. And then then he's come and says, everyone is mad about this. So just let me clarify that I am 100% correct. And some guy has posted it. But it's like, Joe Rogan's not talking to me or marketing to me. And the only fear I have, and this kind of idea that artists would remove their content from Spotify because they don't want to be on the same platform as him.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It forces a debate. It starts a conversation. It's the same. It's the same as my solar panels. No, but if we drive Joe Rogan off the general platform, what then? Like because I noticed maybe it was RightTube that's offered him $12 billion to move on to, I don't know how much it was something number,
some platform,
to move to some platform like that, and you're like, oh, okay, I've never heard of this platform. And now they've got some press. They've got some. I've now heard of this platform, and so does somebody else who might be more tempted to go to that platform. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
well,
there's kind of a,
I think I do have a semi-optimistic outlook on this. If we just look at Trump, T ****. He tried to do his own platform. Like, he's not allowed on Twitter and Facebook anymore. But I don't think he's had any. I know he's got his little pockets and he's doing the little things, but he has nowhere near the. He's not able to do nearly as much damage now that he's not on the big platforms. And those small platforms tend not to be, especially if they're like. What was it? The sort of Twitter for freaking right wingers kind of thing. I don't want to say right wing. I just wanted to say libertarians or whatever. But they just weren't very good platforms, and a social network really kind of it has to be big and popular to work. And so if they just have their own weird little echo, I think seeing that Trump has lost his bite by being kicked off real Twitter does give me some hope that if you kick Joe Rogan off real Spotify, then you may be.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, and how much of it? I guess I just feel like, and I totally, on the one hand, there's that schoolyard thing of if someone's being nasty, ignore them. Like, don't give them attention. Like, if they're turn your back, don't play with them until they play nicely. All of that stuff. I still generally, don't feed the troll stuff. That's how I behave in day-to-day life. So in many ways, Joe Rogan should, if what he's saying is genuinely deliberately provocative, then he should be kicked off the platform. But the sorry, I'm being interrupted. But interrupted. But the I just
Eck
part of me
Eck is very like, oh, we're not going to kick him off, isn't he?
Yeah, because
Rogan offered 100 million for rival Aircon Spot. It's announced the company will invest. What? Oh, Spotify's boss Daniel Ek has announced the company will invest 100 million in discovering and marketing more diverse audio talent after footage emerged of controversial podcaster Joe Rogan using racial slurs.
But that's that whole argument that guilty feminists use, like the balanced argument. You just need more freaks. No, you don't. You don't need a flat earther at a science debate. You don't.
Exactly.
Not for balance and equality and all of that. There are some people who are just wrong, and inflammatory and nasty. And to some of his, I did try. I thought about listening to one of his episodes, and then you fall into this. It doesn't take long. You're like 4 or 5 clicks away from falling into some real negative hole of vaccine denial or just horribleness. And I don't want to go there. I don't want to be there.
Why should we? And really, I did hear this. Obviously this appeals to me, but tolerance of others is a contract, and if you break that contract of if you start using racial slurs, sorry, you've broken that agreement, and now you are not welcome at the table. And that should be,
Yeah.
and you have to work hard to get back to the table. You shouldn't just be able to. Freedom of speech is not like you can say anything you want and everything's fine.
No.
There's a social contract where we look, we tolerate. I tolerate you and you tolerate me. But if you refuse to do that, then like there's no society here anymore. It's just
I know.
you've sort of broken
So,
it.
so now I've got to go and find a different children's music app, which is really annoying.
I feel
Or
like
do
Apple. I don't know. It's so hard because how can you not buy stuff off Amazon? How can you not use Spotify? How can you not use the problem is we are in a monopolistic. Businesses become monopolies because Reagan tore down all of the regulations that protected us from having monopolies, and now all of that talent, all of that energy has gone into a few big companies, and we're kind of stuck at like late stage neoliberal capitalism, and this is just another one of the symptoms. And one person, another bald guy, has all the power to just on a whim say yes or no, and it affects millions of people all over the world. And that comes back to the biggest problem of our time. But this with music,
Yeah. Well,
let me put
okay.
Let me put a break in. I don't know if we've got much more to say, but we've only...
No.
I'll put the break in and we can just... Yeah. I feel like I used that one already. There's some sounds. Go join me live on Twitch for music. Spotify... Thing is, the music industry has always been highly exploitative. I met a musician this week who was sort of like me from another dimension. Musician, pianist, coder, like putting stuff out, graphics, visuals, processing, all this stuff. I met, me from another dimension. I felt sort of like horribly insecure about music because I never got the sort of music thing. I never managed to make that work in the way that he has. And he's sort of played in his dream venues and like been mentored by like a sort of really great sort of like improvising pianist. And we it was like I had that mirror held up to me where he was talking about the power and importance and of music and the privilege and the responsibility of making music. If you have that, then you need to have a responsibility to it. And as me, who has so given up on, I don't know, like I'm like bitter from the bitter dimension when it comes to that stuff, and I've almost like switched off that whole part of my brain because there's no middle class in music. There's no way to be not. There's a 1% problem, and even those people that are successful as musicians are all trying to make ends meet by releasing an app, so like Rihanna, all of these huge artists, like the way we treat it is has just made me go, look, I'm not, it's not even, that doesn't even interest me, that way of doing things. And so I've sort of had to switch off that thing, but then to sort of be faced with someone that still has it very much switched on, it just, who can I blame? It's always been exploitative. It's always been this thing. I can blame Daniel Ek. I can blame, this thing. But I can talk about the fact that some people have this privilege to be able to do it, and some people don't. I can say like, oh well, if I didn't have to, do a job to be able to live, then I could have got deeper into, like focus more on that. But really, the music industry was big in the 20th century as recording technology emerged, and that distribution became something that capitalism could fuel, kind of thing. So you take a blues artist and you get a recording of them, and then you sell hundreds of thousands of copies. You keep most of the money, you give them a few quid, and that's how it's always worked. And because there was a sort of narrow amount of distribution, there's clear channel, and there was radio stuff, and then there was like a few record labels or whatever. It was hard to get seen, and there was a very small number of big artists, but sort of everyone knew about them. So you got Michael Jacksons, you got Stevie Wonders, you got these huge artists. So I came up through the 90s, and there was this whole thing of we're going to be successful in our band, and we're going to be millionaires, because that's what it looked like at the time. But as the internet came in, it democratized the distribution part of that, but it also took away the ability of anyone to be able to actually sell music as a commodity at all, really. And one of the hardest things I ever came to terms with when I read a blog post about it was that it was kind of a flash in the pan that music was ever this huge industry, and now it's kind of a more distributed thing. But even though there are Spotifys and Apples in the world that are sort of still kind of doing the top kind of like mainstream that everyone knows about artists, for the rest of us, the travelling bards, the people that just want to kind of go around and play our little lutes, and In puts us up, and there's a campfire, and we add a huge amount of value to that campfire. Like if you come through a town and you play your little thing, that is all gone, because anyone can summon Stevie Wonder with a snap of their fingers. And so why would they? And even like live music, it's like it's sort of been displaced by DJs, because they can just switch to a completely different like creative canvas, like it's song. So the life of a musician for me is it's just not tenable. And that's really upsetting, because it is so difficult, and I think it is one of the most magical and impossible to rationalize things in the universe. Is what the hell is music? Why does it work? What makes it work? What doesn't make it work? It's so expensive to do it. If it's like the equipment, all this stuff. Like I saw a microphone that was 22 grand secondhand this week. It's like, I'm not like, to make it sound like those professional recordings is still hugely expensive, but it's this weird paradox of anyway, that's my rant about the state of
it's really interesting.
What's happened to music. What can we even do? Like Daniel Ek, you promised us money and you never gave it to us, so fuck you.
I love the idea of you as a
Sorry, I interrupted Ivanka. I thought I'd try and do a classic grand podcast effort. She loves the idea of me as a travelling bard because...
It's just a picture of it in my head. It's quite amusing. So my continuing playing with my daughter, playing simply piano, playing the piano together is... may not lead her to a life of fame and fortune, but the fun we have, I think.
Yeah, you gotta just do it for my freaking
do it for
phone.
love.
I nudged my phone and now my camera's gone. So, man, because I just wanted to show my. Okay, that's. It's gone. For fuck's sake. All right, well, my camera's off, so that's fun, isn't it?
Brilliant. So...
this cable's supposed to be a good Apple one. Anyway, whatever. All right, thanks for listening. If you like the podcast, go to grandpodcast.com, where you can... Patreon. Where can people find you on the internet, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
Oh, you can find me at Michael Forrest on Twitter. And all the stuff I'm doing mostly is coming via squares.tv. And this is my loot. Let me show this. I'll show... the battery ran out. I must have left it on. See, this is why we can't do it. Have nice things. Everything needs batteries. We'll see you. I'm away to Porto next week, so I'm on holiday. So we will not have a podcast episode next week, unfortunately, because I am selfish and I need a little break. But we'll see you in 2 weeks. So have a good time in the meantime and enjoy your existences. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye 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 bye.